It's like everywhere you look in nature, there's some kind of repeating pattern, spirals and seashells, hexagons, and a honeycomb.
Yeah.
And like we're diving into today the branching structures we see like everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like nature's a master architect, right? Constantly finding like the most efficient solutions. And branching is one of those brilliant solutions for distributing like resources and nutrients and sunlight and...
Okay, so I get how like a tree uses branching to get more sunlight with its leaves. But what about other things? How does it work for them?
Okay, so think about like a river system.
Right.
If it was just like one straight channel, it wouldn't be very effective for draining a large area.
Right.
But when you have like a network of branching tributaries, it can be collected and transported like way more efficiently.
Oh, that makes sense. So spreading out like that, I guess, would also help with like erosion and preventing flooding.
For sure. The branching network kind of slows down the water flow, allows sediment to settle, and reduces that like erosive power of the river. So it's a natural way to manage the flow and minimize its impact.
It's like nature saying, let's spread things out and optimize for efficiency.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's zero in on trees for a sec. They seem like the ultimate example of branching in action, right?
Right.
I mean, how do they get so tall while still staying upright with all those branches?
So trees have developed this hierarchical system of branching that's like crazy efficient. You start with the trunk, right? Which acts as the main support and the primary conduit for water and nutrients.
Okay, so the trunk is like the main highway for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Then you have primary branches coming off the trunk and then secondary branches off those primaries and so on. Each level serves a specific purpose, and they get smaller and finer as you move out from the trunk.
So it's like a delivery system with different packages getting sorted along the way.
Yeah, I like that.
But there's got to be a limit, right, to how much a tree can branch out.
Well,
Otherwise, they just keep growing forever and get super top heavy.
yeah, you're totally right. There are limits to branching. It's all about balancing resource acquisition with structural stability. Like, imagine a tree with an infinite number of branches. It would just collapse under its own weight.
So there's like a sweet spot.
Yeah.
How do trees figure out where that is?
It's complicated. It's a mix of genetics, resource availability, and environmental conditions. But one of the key principles is this idea of nutrient transport efficiency.
Okay, let's unpack that. How does nutrient transport play into branching limits?
Okay, so every new branch a tree grows needs resources to like build and maintain itself.
Right.
The tree has to transport water and nutrients from the roots all the way up to the leaves on that new branch. And if a branch is too far from the trunk or too small, the cost of transporting those nutrients might outweigh the benefits of having those leaves.
It's like a cost-benefit analysis for every branch.
Exactly. Trees are constantly making decisions about where to allocate their resources to maximize growth and survival.
Fascinating. So this leads us to like a pretty wild aspect of tree branching. Fractal geometry.
Yeah, fractals.
Those mind-bending, infinitely repeating patterns. I didn't expect that.
They're way more common than you think. If you look closely at the branching pattern of a tree, you'll notice that the same basic shape is repeated at different scales. The way a primary branch comes off the trunk is like a mini version of how a secondary branch comes off a primary one.
Whoa, so it's like a Russian nesting doll of branches. Each level is a miniature version of the one above it.
Yeah, exactly. And that self-similarity is a classic characteristic of fractals. And while it might seem just aesthetic, it actually serves a really practical purpose for the tree.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more. How does fractal geometry help a tree?
Okay, so it allows the tree to efficiently distribute resources and capture sunlight throughout its entire structure. The repeating patterns make sure that no area is too far from a source of nutrients and that leaves are well spaced to get sunlight without too much shade.
Wow, nature is like a master engineer. But you said earlier that even fractals have limits. Why don't we see trees branching out infinitely in this fractal pattern?
Right. Well, remember those constraints we talked about. Resource availability, structural stability, the efficiency of nutrient transport, all of that plays a role in limiting how far the fractal branching can go. There's a point where adding more branches costs more than it benefits, even if they follow that beautiful fractal pattern.
It's a balancing act, just like everything in nature.
Yep.
Okay, so we've talked about how trees use branching to reach for the sky and get the most resources. But what about rivers? They have those amazing branching patterns, too. How do those develop? And what are the benefits?
So river networks develop over time through erosion and deposition. As water flows over the landscape, it carves out channels which then branch and reconnect and form a complex network of tributaries.
Right. I remember learning about different drainage patterns in geography. like dendritic patterns that look like tree branches and radial patterns where rivers flow outward from a central point. It's like nature has a whole playbook of branching designs for rivers.
And each pattern reflects the underlying geology and topography of the land. But no matter the pattern, the branching structure of rivers has a crucial role to play. It efficiently transports water, sediment, and nutrients across huge distances.
That makes sense. One channel couldn't handle all that. It's amazing how these patterns emerge without any planning or blueprint.
It is. That's one of the coolest things about nature. It follows simple rules, but those rules can create incredibly complex and intelligent designs.
Okay, I'm seeing a theme here. Nature loves branching to move things efficiently, whether it's sap, blood, or water. Is there some kind of grand unifying theory that explains why this pattern is everywhere?
There's this concept called the constructal law. It gets a little mind-bending, though.
Ooh, here's where it gets interesting. Lay it on me.
Okay, so the constructal law basically says that any flow system, whether it's water, air, or even ideas, will evolve over time to minimize resistance and maximize flow. It's like nature saying, let's find the path of least resistance and optimize those pathways for maximum efficiency.
So it's not just about branching. It's about optimizing any kind of flow.
Exactly. And this applies to everything from the microscopic to the macroscopic.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So this seemingly simple law about optimizing flow might actually be like a fundamental principle governing how systems evolve and organize themselves, from the tiniest capillaries in our bodies to the massive network of the internet.
It's a powerful concept, and one that's still being explored and debated by scientists all over. Welcome back.
So I'm still reeling from that constructal law.
Yeah.
It's like nature is obsessed with finding the smoothest, most efficient path for like everything.
Yeah, and it's not just trees and rivers. The implications of this law go way beyond that.
Okay, so give me some examples. How does this law play out in other parts of nature?
Well, let's think about something closer to home. The human body.
Ooh, good one. We've got branching structures all over the place, right? Like our lungs, our circulatory system, even the neurons in our brains.
Okay, let's take the circulatory system. The heart pumps blood through this network of arteries and veins that reach every single cell in your body.
Yeah, it's an amazing delivery system, bringing oxygen and nutrients to like every corner of us.
And that branching pattern of those blood vessels, it's not random. It's optimized according to the constructal law for efficient flow and using the least energy possible.
So the way our arteries branch out from the aorta and then into smaller arterioles and then finally capillaries, it's all about minimizing resistance and maximizing blood flow.
Exactly. And the same principle applies to the network of veins that carry the deoxygenated blood back to the heart.
This is making me think about how even the tiniest capillaries, those microscopic blood vessels, they play a vital role.
Oh, absolutely. They're like the endpoints of that branching network where the actual exchange of oxygen and nutrients happens.
Wow. So even at the microscopic level, nature is sticking to this principle of optimizing flow.
It really shows you the power of simple rules governing these complex systems. And speaking of complex systems, let's not forget the respiratory system.
Right, the lungs. Another prime example of branching.
Yeah, so the trachea branches into those two bronchi, which then branch into smaller and smaller bronchioles, ending in those tiny air sacs called alveoli.
And the alveoli, that's where the magic happens. The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide.
Right. The branching structure of the lungs maximizes the surface area for gas exchange. Make sure we're getting enough oxygen and removing enough CO2.
It's like nature designed the perfect breathing system.
And you guessed it, that branching pattern is governed by the constructal law, minimizing resistance to airflow and maximizing the efficiency of gas exchange.
Okay, so we've seen how the constructal law explains branching in rivers, trees, even our own bodies. But what about systems that aren't physical? Can this law apply to things like information flow or even the spread of ideas?
Now, that's a really interesting question. It gets to the core of why the constructal law is so powerful. Some scientists think it can apply to any system where there's a flow of something, even abstract concepts.
Okay, I'm hooked. Give me an example.
Think about the internet. It's a massive network of computers constantly sharing information.
And the way information moves through the internet has definitely changed over time.
For sure. Early versions of the internet were more centralized, with a few main hubs controlling the flow of data. But as it grew, it became more decentralized with multiple pathways for information to travel.
So it's kind of like how rivers branch out to cover a bigger area and transport water better.
Exactly. And this shift towards a more decentralized branching structure has made the internet way more resilient and adaptable.
Right. If one connection goes down, information can just reroute through a different path.
Exactly. And some researchers actually think that this evolution of the internet is an example of the constructal law in action, the flow of information seeking the paths of least resistance.
Okay, mind blown again. So this seemingly simple law about optimizing flow could actually be a fundamental principle shaping how systems evolve and organize themselves, from tiny capillaries to the vast network of the internet.
It's a powerful concept for sure, and one that scientists are still exploring and debating across different fields.
I'm looking at everything differently now, seriously. From the veins on a leaf to traffic patterns in a city.
That's the beauty of these fundamental principles. They give you a whole new way of seeing the world and how everything is connected.
Listeners, are you ready for more mind-blowing insights? We're about to explore how we can use this knowledge of nature's genius to design better, more sustainable systems in our world.
Join us for the final part of our deep dive as we get into the exciting field of biomimicry.
Okay, so we're back, and I gotta say, my mind is still buzzing from all this talk about branching.
Yeah.
It's incredible how nature just nails it when it comes to efficiency.
Yeah, and as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's time to ask ourselves, how can we use these lessons from nature to actually design better systems in our world?
Right, we've seen how nature solves problems with such elegance and efficiency. Can we dip into that genius?
That's the whole idea behind biomimicry, looking to nature for inspiration to solve human problems. And when it comes to branching, the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
Okay, so give me some examples. How are we already using biomimicry to, improve our designs?
Think about architecture. Skyscrapers, with their central cores and branching support structures, often mimic the way trees distribute weight and handle forces.
So we're basically learning from trees to build taller, stronger, more sustainable buildings.
Exactly. But it's not just buildings. Engineers are using branching principles to design more efficient wind turbine blades, lighter and stronger airplane wings, even better networks for distributing water and energy.
Makes sense to learn from the best, right? Nature has had billions of years to perfect these designs.
Exactly. And the benefits go beyond just efficiency and strength. Biomimicry can also help us create systems that are more resilient, just like the natural systems are based on.
Okay, can you give me an example of how branching principles lead to more resilient designs?
Sure, think about old school communication networks. They were often set up like a tree with a central hub and branches going out. If that hub failed, the whole system crashed.
Right, a single point of failure. Not very resilient.
Now think about the internet. It's a decentralized network with multiple pathways for information to flow. So if one connection breaks, the data just reroutes through another path.
Just like a tree with multiple branches. If one breaks, the others can still do their job.
Exactly. By mimicking nature's decentralized branching networks, we're making systems that are less vulnerable to disruptions and more adaptable to change.
That makes me think about our energy grid. A decentralized grid with local generation and distribution would be so much more resilient to outages.
That's a great application, and it fits in perfectly with the move towards renewable energy sources like solar and wind, which are already more distributed by nature.
It's like we're coming full circle, learning from nature to build a more sustainable and resilient future.
That's the whole point of biomimicry, recognizing that nature already has the blueprints for sustainable solutions to a lot of our problems.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. I'm honestly looking at everything differently now. From the veins on a leaf to the traffic patterns in a city.
It's amazing how something as simple as branching can give us such deep insights into how nature works and how we can come up with better solutions.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
What are some of the frontiers of biomimicry and branching that you're most excited about?
One area that's super promising is developing self-healing materials inspired by living things. Imagine a bridge that can repair its own cracks, or a building that can adapt to changing weather.
That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. Is that really possible?
It's closer than you think. Scientists are already using the way trees heal wounds and bones mend fractures to create materials that can actually regenerate and repair themselves.
That's incredible. What about artificial intelligence? Are there ways branching principles are being used to build smarter systems?
Absolutely. The branching structure of neural networks, which is inspired by the neurons in our brains, is at the heart of a lot of AI breakthroughs. This lets machines learn, recognize patterns, and make decisions in ways we couldn't have imagined before.
So we're basically trying to recreate the complexity and adaptability of nature in our technology.
Yeah.
But with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. As we go deeper into these areas, we have to think about the ethical implications and make sure these technologies are developed and used responsibly.
Well said. So biomimicry isn't about just copying nature. It's about learning from its wisdom, adapting its principles, and using them to create a better future for us and the planet.
We have a lot to learn from the natural world. By paying attention to its lessons, we can design a more sustainable, efficient, and resilient future.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey. It's a powerful reminder that the best solutions are often found right in front of us in the natural world. Thanks for joining us as we explore the world of branching patterns.
It's been great unraveling these mysteries with you. And remember, the next time you're out in nature, take a moment to appreciate the beauty and wisdom of those branching structures all around you.
That's right. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep wondering.